Hello, I'm Laurent Borgani, Director of Engineering at Aurelia Systems and Solutions. Today I'm going to present an enhanced solution to provide reliable GNSS timing source to critical networks. This enhanced solution specifically targets three industry sectors, which are telecom, energy, and finance. The solution is currently under development in a project called GEARS, which is subsidized by the GSA under the Fundamental Element Program of the European Commission. This project is conducted by a consortium of different companies and institutions across Europe. Within the consortium, the National Land Survey of Finland is working on GNSS integrity together with the NLR in the Netherlands, which is also working on IDM technologies to remove radio frequency interferences. FDC in France is working on the new Galileo GPS GNSS receiver, which will especially support OSNMA service. Aurelia in France is working on the core timing technologies and the integration of all the different technical blocks into commercially available solutions. Finally, NavCert in Germany is working on the standardization and certification of these products. The GEARS project is focusing on improving the performances and resilience of Galileo and GNSS timing receivers. The key performance target of the project is to provide an accurate timing with no more error than 50 nanoseconds compared to UTC. About the resilience, the goal is to raise the bar in terms of integrity by using embedded monitoring systems such as REM, for example. All of these features will be provided with no specific calibration whatsoever. The second objective is to demonstrate that unique Galileo services such as OSNMA, for example, can be very effective for critical infrastructures operators. Finally, the third objective is to push for adoption and standardization of such enhanced solutions. In this presentation, the enhanced solution will be presented in 4 sections. The first one will introduce the overall architecture of the solution, which is actually organized in different production layers. Then each of the following sections will describe in more details a new building block of the enhanced solution being developed in the GEARS project. In Aurelia, we are using a layered approach to provide resilient PNT. We have already developed some specific technologies at every stage of processing PNT signals to generate not only accurate timing but also position and navigation. From top to bottom on the schematic, the key layers are first, using several PNT signals, then filter interferences at the antenna level, otherwise clean the signals up after reception. Then, detect jamming or spoofing to use only internal PNT references when necessary, perform a final quality check, and then provide timing following cybersecurity rules. With the GEARS project, we are developing several new modules which will work in different layers as shown on the schematic with the red circles around these new modules. First, we are developing a new antenna called GUARD, specifically dedicated to infrastructures. Second, we are also developing a new multi-constellation, multi-frequency GNSS receiver which will feature all the Galileo services, especially OSNMA. This receiver will also implement additional IDM digital filters of interferences working in frequency domain. A module to compensate ionosphere and troposphere propagation delays will be implemented using the NIQUIC algorithm for single frequency Galileo signals, for example. Lastly, a REM algorithm will also constantly monitor the integrity of the receiver output data. Third, new timing devices are developed to provide the highest level of functional safety and security using redundancy. The next section will describe the new GUARD antenna. GUARD is not only a GNSS antenna, but a device which combines a control reception pattern antenna with a Galileo and other constellation receiver. The CRPR features 4 antenna elements with a null-forming module to provide spatial filtering of interferences coming from up to 3 different directions. It is designed to support all the GNSS constellations and frequency bands, but with the processing of 3 bands simultaneously. GUARD will also include 2 new Galileo and other constellation receivers to provide timing directly with no need of additional external receiver. This will allow to support OSNMA and RAM directly in the antenna. GUARD is capable of providing GNSS signals as any standard antenna, but more importantly, to provide time over standard networks using PTP or NTP. GUARD can then be used directly as a time saver by any critical infrastructure. The next section will highlight the features of the new GNSS receiver with IDM being developed in the GES project. The new Galileo GNSS receiver will feature digital filters of the interferences. These filters will complement the GUARD special filter using a different approach. They will work in the frequency domain in order to reduce the power of jamming signals. 5 types of jamming are targeted: wide sweep, multiple narrowband, triangular, tick type, and continuous wave. The new receiver will be able to support simultaneously the 3 frequency bands of the Galileo constellation. It will also support all the other constellations. To provide a high level of integrity, the receiver will implement dual redundant RF front-end and PVT processing. This will allow to dedicate each of the 2 signal processing engines to a specific constellation and therefore don't mix signals and processing of these 2 different constellations. The reconciliation of the 2 PVT calculations will be done after all the integrity monitoring will have been performed in order to provide a unique, consistent time information. So if any integrity issue affects only one constellation, it will not be propagated to the entire PVT computation. The new receiver will be usable in no-OLIA clocks, but also in GUARD to provide additional layers of protection directly in the antenna. The last section will deal with the safety architecture, which is going to be implemented in the future clocks as an outcome of the GEAR project. Down the road, clocks are necessary to generate time. When they are used to synchronize critical infrastructures, they must be absolutely safe and secured, which means that they can't break or they cannot be broken easily. In the world of infrastructures, the availability of systems is categorized according to the percentage of uptime. For example, an appliance which is available 99.99999% of the time will fall into the so-called category of the 7 nines. This will practically mean that such a system running 24/7 during 1 year will suffer from only 3.2 seconds of downtime. But high availability requires high reliability from an electronic system point of view. This cannot be achieved by using only the most reliable components, but can be reached by using redundancy. As an example, when 2 identical systems with a reliability of 90% are put in parallel to be able to replace each other on the fly, then the redundant system considered as a whole has a reliability of 99%. In the new clock being developed, all the critical functions are redundant, especially the GNSS receiver and therefore the constellations and the power supplies. As some single points of failures remains in such a design, the new clock will also feature a low C-swap, cost, size, weight and power, in order to allow using 2 of them in redundancy in an affordable and convenient way. To implement a hot standby mode, the clock will be designed to support a fail-safe system, which will automatically switch from one clock to another, all the timing data being sent to users within the critical infrastructures. The clock and the overall timing system not only need to use reliable hardware to be functionally safe, but they also need reliable and safe processing of data. In the clock, a resilient GNSS timing processing architecture will be developed and implemented. As shown in the diagram, this architecture will use different modules already mentioned previously in the presentation. The first one is the IDM module, which will reduce jamming signals by filtering them in the frequency domain. This module works on digitalized GNSS signals which will need to be up-converted back to RF signals in order to fit two Galileo GNSS receivers. These receivers, developed by FDC, will be based on the standard TZ05 GNSS receivers from STMicro. They will be complemented by some components to support OSNMA and other specific anti-spoofing capabilities. One of these receivers will process the Galileo signals, while the other one will process an alternative constellation. This other constellation will likely be GPS in most of the cases, even though this will be user selectable. The pseudo ranges and navigation messages of the two receivers will then feed the SIS correction module. This module will implement a clock correction function before ionospheric and tropospheric corrections. The ionospheric correction function will use a Nyquist algorithm to correct Galileo signal frequency signals, a Klobuchar algorithm to correct GPS single frequency signals, and the iono-free algorithm to correct all the dual frequency signals. The last function of this module will be the tropospheric correction. After the measurements have been corrected, a timing receiver autonomous integrity monitoring, also called TRAM, is applied in the time and quality estimation module. The TRAM is run in an iterative cycle along with the system time estimation. It verifies that all observations are consistent both mutually and with the measurement models. The outliers, due to either incorrect ephemerides or excessive multipath, are excluded from the PVT solution. As a constellation system level failure may yield a set of measurements that are mutually consistent but are actually erroneous, in such cases, the TRAM will fail to exclude the measurements. Therefore, the time and quality module will use in parallel but separately two independent constellations. The outputs of these two parallel processing of timing will then be cross-checked and reconciled to generate a unique timescale aligned with UTC. As part of the GEARS project, the team worked also on the contribution to standardization. Two recent standards produced by two different organizations in the scope of GNSS have been considered as a starting point. The European norm 16803 series, which stands for GNSS Base Positioning Terminals, and the technical specification 103-246 series, which stands for GNSS Base Location Systems. While both standards are defined in the road domain, the concepts and principles they defined are of relevance and applicable in a more general setting. The team will now write a technical specification to convey and put forward the scheme for the development of a new Galileo-based standard independently of the final choice of the standardization organization. This was the end of this presentation. On behalf of all the GEARS project team, thank you for your attention.